You can still win. In fact, landlords, again, if you own for a decade, your chances of being wealthy are really good. But today, probably for the next 18 months, right? I have a saying, and I've been saying it for the last month or so. The next 18 months are going to be harder than the last 2 years. Just it's coming, right?
Yeah.
Let's just own it, know it's coming, and buckle up. The real estate market is clearly slowing down. Interest rates matter. We saw new home sales tank. We just got pending home sales down. We had existing home sales down. Folks, 7% mortgage rates are restricting demand. It's unaffordable. And we have to ask ourselves, what's next? What I think is next is we're going to see the average turnover of tenants and homeowners greatly increase. People are going to stay longer. But as a landlord, what does that mean for you? We've actually seen rents in single family homes pull back a little bit. What happened? I think rents got a little overextended or exaggerated when there was free money. And now that free money is gone, we're seeing disposable income go down. So I think a landlord would be doing themselves right to really focus on their current tenants and make sure the tenant is having a good experience. In order to have this conversation, we're going to talk with Dana Dunford, CEO of Hemlane, because they provide a platform that can help with that. Dana, what's going on?
Great. Thanks so much for having me. So yes, I do want to talk about tenants and keeping them, making them happy, especially in this age of instant gratification. But before that, it's really interesting with rental rates, to your point of, are we seeing declines in rental rates? Are tenants staying in their rentals for longer? And it is true. We're seeing more renewals. However, the rate increase is not as much. So even though landlords are increasing their rent, it's, that 1 to 2% that we're seeing, at least in the Hemlane system, rather than there was a point where it was 5% plus.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that was back when we saw huge inflation. Most recently, I think about a year and a half ago, we were
Mm.
really seeing rents jacked up a lot. Now we're seeing that soften. So we're still seeing rates increase for renewals, but just a tiny bit, not as much as you would have expected, or as much as you remember from the years prior.
Yeah, I think if I was a landlord and just kind of getting into the game the last couple of years, I just want you to be very understand this. What you experienced the last 2 years, not normal. Frankly, not healthy. The other thing I would tell you is if you try to get greedy on rents today, you're going to force a decision, and that decision will be to move. I've actually seen, like, for example, there's a house in my market. It's a little two bedroom, one bath. For the longest time, rent on this was like 1150, 11, like sub 1200. During the nonsense of the environment, rents went up to 1750. Crazy, right? With new tenants going because the demand was so high. People wanted this 2-1 has a big yard, it's fenced, it's great for kids, all of that. And now we're seeing that house being offered at 1500, which would have been a much more kind of traditional path. I
Yep.
think a lot I think a lot of landlords probably got greedy, they pushed too much. And again, know your market, know your rent box, know your market, and don't push it. This is not the time. Tenants will move. In fact, if disposable income is going down for your tenants, they may have to move regardless, right? At least in my history, people want to go from apartments to houses. They do
Yes.
everything they can not to go from a house to an apartment. If you look at the numbers, we're going to see some people go from houses to apartments.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So then the question is really with it, how do you retain tenants? How do you justify if you are doing rent increases? How would you justify that? And I think one thing that is not brought up enough is how much the world is changing, where just consumers in general think less and expect immediacy.
Yeah.
So this kind of instant gratification of, if you think about what you used to do to like plan for a birthday present, you would have to go to the store and buy it or plan a week in advance if you were buying it online. Now everyone thinks, oh, I'll buy it a day or two in advance with 1 day or 2 day Amazon Prime
Yeah.
shipping. And they expect, I'm hungry. Oh, great. Let me go on DoorDash and it will be here in 30 minutes. I need something from this store. Let me just go on my phone and click a couple buttons. And so what we've seen is tenants do expect that. And with the world so connected and hooked onto their technology, we find that they expect everything to be immediate. And that comes down to support. If they have questions on support, it comes down to repairs. It comes down to questions that they may have for you as a landlord. And so I think it's really important to understand that and make sure that when you set up your process, you're not stressed as a landlord, because it's a great game to be in, especially with interest rates that many of you are locked into, to make sure you kind of see the bigger picture and set yourself up for success, so you don't get into this wheel of like, I need to respond immediately. I can't have my Saturday. I can't have my Sunday because my tenants need something right now. And so I think it's really important to understand like where trends are, and then how you yourself are able to have a winning strategy in there. There's a stat, I don't know if I told you this, Michael, but Amazon did a recent study, and they said that they would lose over 1.5 billion in annualized revenue, so sales, if their homepage loaded 1 second slower. That,
Oh,
yes, that's how crazy the world is, that it's like things need to be done now. And so, Michael, I want to kind of turn it over to you. What does that kind of mean to you? How do you think about that? And then happy to share how we think about it as well, being a tech company, but also being a tech company that says we want to provide a better experience for tenants and owners. How do you do that and meet everyone in the middle and provide that solution?
well, I kind of look at this kind of big scale, kind of macro. You're going to get very micro, which is awesome for the folks kind of hands-on operations. But I look at this very macro in that if you can still win. In fact, landlords, again, if you own for a decade, your chances of being wealthy are really good. But today, probably for the next 18 months, right? I have a saying, and I've been saying it for the last month or so. The next 18 months are going to be harder than the last 2 years. Just it's coming, right?
Yeah.
Let's just own it, know it's coming, and buckle up. But what does that mean is you got to focus on operations. You got to focus on the day to day. You got to focus on communication. You got to focus on audit trail. You have to focus on expectation setting. You have to communicate. And in today's world, that means the phone. That means, frankly, hem lane for all the audit trail and communications and service level agreements and all of those expectation setting. Operators, good operators with good technology will win. The fly by nights, the financial engineers, the people that thought it was easy, the people without process, procedures, or technology are going to get their ass handed to them. It's going to be a rough 18 months. I suspect you're going to see evictions rise. I think it's coming. And, do they go up 5%, 10%? I don't know. I think if the consumer is as stretched as I think, again, you're going to see people go from houses to apartments, and they're going to fight it,
Yep.
and they're going to delay it. And so again, know it's coming, be a good operator, get your processes and procedures buttoned up. Don't take any excuses. And, let's get to the other side. That's what I think about.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good point. I think with consumer strapped, it has to do with that instant gratification too of, hey, there was another study, I'll tell you, where they tracked consumers' behavior online, and they said, like, Michael, you're a consumer, how much do you actually think you spent this month on online shopping?
Yeah.
What was interesting about that was that essentially it was more than it was, they had actually spent double of what they said they spent.
That's
And
not good.
yes, and
It's
so
not good.
I think when you're talking about consumers being financially strapped, how you win, I think a lot of it is setting these expectations, making sure you have things on auto pay or some sort of plan to make sure that they're paying rent early before they've spent it all on online shopping. And I also think from that perspective, you definitely need to have a strategy where when you're doing repairs or anything like that, you really set expectations through your system of, hey, we'll get back to you in 24 hours because this is not an emergency. Or yes, this is an emergency. We're escalating this and we're getting this done right away. And I think really making sure that you have everything set up from that perspective will ease that anxiety for a tenant who says, hey, I just put in a request. Where is it? Like, what's going on? Or I sent you an email. Did you get my email? Because my washing machine isn't working and I need it right now. If you can instantly respond with the next steps, letting them know and prioritization and why it's where it is, you will win. I also think making sure that you have a really good system to track rent, make sure it's paid on time. If your tenants fall behind, it should not be, oh, I usually get rent by the 4th and the late fee doesn't kick in until the 5th. So I think it's going to be, I think it's okay. No, because then the 4th becomes the 5th. Then it
Yep.
becomes the 6th. And so setting those expectations and coming through, okay, you are delayed on paying rent. Maybe we need to have you pay twice a month. You pay earlier before your paycheck is spent on these online purchases, which it's so easy to do. You never know how much you spend on Amazon. Clearly from that study that people were spending twice as of what they expected.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think that's wonderful. And again, Hemlane is a place where they can go get a 14-day trial, and Hemlane offers a free option now. Where can they go get all the details?
Yeah, you can go to www.hemlane, Hemlane, and just mention one rental at a time. Because if you do use our paid services, you get 20% off that first year.
Thank you so much, folks. And just so you know, if you are part of the One Rental at a Time school community, Hemlane is going to be hosting a monthly call on what they are doing with the application. So even more value coming to the school community. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michael.